course, they're in the middle of this $12 million study to gauge the effectiveness and the costs of using dogs for post-traumatic stress. And that's one of the things that's in the works. The PAWS Act we've talked about here on the show, to where the VA can actually provide the service animal instead of saying, well, here's a prescription for it, good luck finding one. But this article talks about how the research into the use of service dogs is plagued with problems, and that some folks are suggesting that the dogs are trained to do things that could reinforce fears. And other people are worried that the animals could become a substitute for the hard work that comes with therapy. Who is this? Dr. Edna Foa, who's the director of the Center for Treatment and Study of Anxiety at the University of Pennsylvania. She says, you will have the veterans go more places with dogs and do more things than they would otherwise do. But they are reliant on the dog, not their knowledge of whether really they are afraid of a ghost. Now, that statement pissed me off. I don't know about you, but that made me really angry.
I didn't get any further. That's the point in the article where I might have said some four-letter words that I would not have been able to use in my mother's household.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I had to stop and go, what is this bullcrap?
And I'm gonna look this lady up. I'd love to have her come on the show and defend this comment, because this is absolutely.
I'm not coming on the show that day if she comes on. I'm just telling you right now.
That statement right there is contributing to the stigmas of post-traumatic stress. They say whether or not they won't know because of a dog and they're relying on it. They won't know whether or not they're actually just afraid of a ghost. So essentially, she said, "Oh, if you got PTSD, you're just a pussy. You're afraid of whatever." It is an actual injury. It affects everything. And of all my symptoms of post-traumatic stress, and I have quite a few. All my symptoms of post-traumatic stress, fear is not one of them. Not one of them at all. And that really chapped my ass and rubbed me the wrong way. So then they talk about how they want to study these. The study began in 2011, where 3 nonprofits contracted to provide up to 200 service dogs for veterans, and who would be compared against a control group who didn't receive animals. But then, of course, as anything with the VA, it ran into problems. The VA cut off 2 of the 3 dog vendors following biting incidents involving the participants' children, and the final contract was terminated amid allegations of lax veterinary care and placement of dogs with, quote, known aggressive behavior. So from 2011 until the end of 2012, they only placed 17 dogs between 3 agencies. Now, I know this is a mission that's very near and dear to your heart. To me, this is not a representative study. And my initial gut reaction is, without knowing more, I want to know what dog vendors they contracted out. And were they actually trained as PTSD, animals? Because, the training of the animal is everything. And there are 1,000,001 providers out there, kennels, whatever, breeders, trainers, whatever you want to call it. And let me tell you, folks, there are a lot of bad ones. There's a lot of shady ones out there. And the main reason behind it is, 1, they can get a hell of a lot of money for it. 2, it costs a ridiculous amount to train a dog properly. What is it, like 20, 30 grand a dog?
The dogs that we purchase, raise, and train with Puppy Jake takes us anywhere from 18 months to 2 full years, and on average it's $18,000 to $20,000 per dog.
Yeah. So that's why, the massive cost of properly training and the amount of time is why we have a lot of these dog vendors out there who are passing off working dogs, passing off, guard dogs as service animals. And it's a completely different realm. To have an actual, trained certified, whatever service dog bite somebody or have aggressive behavior, they should.
Something was wrong from the very beginning. They were wrong from the very moment they, quote unquote, started to train that dog.
Yeah, I mean, that dog should have been washed out of the program. Not that it should have been euthanized or anything like that, but some aren't suitable for, being a service
all right,
animal.
let me clarify something for you very quickly. It's either because of the type of dog and lack of training at the very beginning, or it's because of the type of trainer at the beginning of training.
Yeah.
There are a lot of programs out there that we are coming to realize that in their quote-unquote service dog training, they are making these dogs entirely too hypervigilant, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And they are almost creating these dogs to be militaristic and not therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
that's where I believe a lot of these biting incidents are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the guys here in this article, this lady here, Meg Daly Olmert, the chief research advisor for Warrior Canine Connection, which is a Maryland-based nonprofit for service dogs. They use veterans to actually train the dogs for their fellow warfighters. They said that the group's leaders say the dogs should be trained to pick up on cues from PTSD sufferers and then provide the appropriate support, such as learning to wake someone up during a nightmare, detecting when a veteran is anxious, interacting in a way that helps calm them down. And according to Robert Kaufman, who's a retired Navy psychiatrist and chief medical officer for Warrior Canine Connection, he makes the same point you did. He said the VA's dog training protocol reinforces the cognitive distortions that accompany PTSD. So they're not even training them properly.
These dogs should be trained from the very beginning to, in a way, counteract and soften the veteran for how they have been trained in group settings.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure that's the best way to describe it, but that's the only way I can think of right now.
Mm-hmm.
These dogs are not the same type of canine that you guys took out into the field.
Right.
These are not the same dogs that you saw in Kandahar.
No.
These are dogs to help you adapt to being in a civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
So these dogs are not trained to be your crutch.
Right.
They are trained to be a partner for you to make milestones and improve from the current situation that you're in.
Correct. It enables them to take those strides, like going out in public. I mean, that's one that I have a hell of a time with myself. And, that allows folks to get out and to start interacting, and it greatly improves the quality of life. And I think that's just undeniable. One more statement on this here, and then we'll move on. Rick Yount, the executive director of the Warrior Canine Connection, he brought up the point that immediately came to my mind. He questioned whether or not the study had been set up to fail so that the VA wouldn't have to pick up the tab for veterinary bills and for providing the dogs. He pointed out that already the VA is on the hook for upwards of about $1.5 million a year to cover the bills for service dogs for folks with physical injuries. So you got to wonder, man, is money playing a factor here? Much like we were discussing with the guest about the hyperbaric treatment, the VA studies say, oh, this is bad, it doesn't do anything. And all these civilian studies say, oh, it's fantastic, it's phenomenal. So it makes you kind of wonder, and that's why I made the point earlier about considering where your source comes from and what their agenda is. That's my approach.
And, in my experiences in both politics and veteran advocacy, everything comes down to money.
Oh, absolutely. Everything. Money makes the world go round, and especially when it comes to our issues. All right, we're down to almost 15 minutes left of the show, so we're going to throw out some random stories here, completely shifting gears. But these are ones for discussion, to make you think a little bit, and to also put the focus on, where we are as a society and what our priorities are instead of what the real issues are. And so much has been made over the North Carolina bathroom ban, for transgenders and that. And we've talked about.
Oh, you didn't tell me we were going to talk about this.
Well, I threw this in last month, and we talked about this on the show before. Some people, it's a huge deal. Some people really don't care. And I'm not, for the purposes of today, I don't even care to discuss it, because to me, it's going to end up being a personal issue, and you guys know where I stand on states' rights and all that. Where I have the problem is, we had all the stories over the last few weeks of, these big time celebrities boycotting the state, couple performers, things like that. The governor of New York has banned official government travel to the state of North Carolina. And those really didn't surprise me. That's typical, liberal kind of playbook. This one here surprised me. It comes from the Daily Caller. The British Foreign Office issued an official travel advisory to warn lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender citizens traveling to North Carolina and Mississippi that they may be affected by the new laws related to transgender service and bathroom use.
What part of that surprises you?
The fact that another country is issuing this.
Do we or do we not notify our citizens who are flying to, say, South America of Zika?
Okay, Zika is a medical issue. We do warnings of terrorism, security concerns. And I'm sorry, but where you can go to take a shit or take a piss is not a security concern. It may not be a security concern where you can go in that state, but it might be worth letting your citizens of whatever country, in this case Great Britain, knowing you may have an issue. You need to be aware of that state's laws when it comes to your gender identity. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that makes
sense.
In
a way, I can make the argument it's kind of a security notification.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I didn't look at it from that angle. It is a law that doesn't match the other laws, so you wouldn't want to see somebody get hemmed up over something I didn't know about. I could see that, I guess.
Okay, how is it any different than, say, myself as let me think, back in Jesus, I'm going to date myself. Back in 1999 when I moved to Germany, I was given a sheet of paper on what to expect when I went out in public into the malls of Germany in regards to Turkish men.
Right.
They had a tendency to flock towards tall, blonde women. I happen to be a tall, blonde American woman. I was given this sheet of paper and given certain things I needed to be aware of. In my opinion, this is no different.
Yeah, and now that we talk about it, I guess I can definitely see how that could be the case, and I guess it doesn't really doesn't bother me that much. I guess I took it I took it a little bit differently, but I think you're absolutely correct. And see, folks, that's why we debate things. That's why we share ideas. But let's keep going here. This next story, we touched on a little bit yesterday, I think, yesterday or the day before, about there was a school district in England that was warning or sending a letter home with parents telling them that they had to allow their kids to decide their own gender. And I'm not talking high school kids. Yeah, I'm not talking high school kids. I'm not talking college. I'm talking elementary school kids. This district sent a letter home saying, your kid may not identify as male or female, so you should let them choose, and they can mark whatever they want on their forms and everything. And I said it was absolutely ridiculous because of the age of children. Just speaking from a physical development point, sexual identity